Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's training session. It's presented to you by the Carroll Center for the Blind and hosted by Easter Seals, Massachusetts. This training is being funded through the Federal Assistive Technology Act. My name is Sarah Parker, and I'm the program manager of the Assistive Technology Regional Centers at Easter Seals, Massachusetts. The ATRC, hosted by Easter Seals, are lending libraries of assistive technology. Easter Seals offers device demonstrations at 2 locations, Worcester and Boston. And both have an extensive lending library of AT devices. Residents of Massachusetts can visit our centers to learn about, try, and borrow AT free of charge for 30 days. Thousands of devices are available to promote increased independence and attainment of goals for communication, education, hearing, vision, mobility, and daily living. Create a free user account and search our inventory at our web address, which is Massability, MASSABILITY .AT 4ALL.com. I will be your moderator for today's session, which is creating accessible PowerPoint presentations. We thank you for joining us for this informative presentation today. Some brief housekeeping items before we begin. CART transcription is available on the stream text. Oh no, it's closed captions are available by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions, please submit them in the Q&A section. These questions will be answered by the panelists as time allows during the live event. This training session will be recorded and available for viewing at your convenience. And now, please allow me to introduce you to Brian from the Carroll Center to talk about today's presentation.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Brian Switzer from the Carroll Center. I'm our program manager of accessibility technology training and research. At the Carroll Center, we offer assistive technology training on a wide range of different devices, from computers, cell phones, to braille displays and magnifiers. And we also provide digital accessibility training, and whether to people who are typically sighted all the way to the blind and visually impaired as well. We've been delighted lately. We've been training more and more typically sighted people on the importance of digital accessibility. So we have our screen reader user tester training program, and it's not just for people who use a screen reader as their main device, but for anyone who's interested in learning more about using a screen reader and how that's compatible with digital accessibility. And so I'm delighted to partner up with the Easter Seals and Massability to bring this presentation with you to you today. I know it's a beautiful sunny day, but we're glad that you were able to join us today. With me, I have my colleagues, David Kingsbury, our assistive technology instructor, and Louis Doe, our assistive technology instructor and lead class administrator for the screen reader user tester training program. They are wonderful people, experts in the field, and I hope you learned something new today. And with that, I'll turn it over to them.
One second. Thank you, Brian, for that introduction. My name is Louis Doe, and I'm here with my colleague David Kingsbury to present on creating accessible PowerPoint presentations. If you have joined us for our last several sessions on creating accessible PDF documents and creating Microsoft Word documents, we're building on a lot of those concepts. So thank you for supporting and joining us. So as I said, of course, presenters are David Kingsbury and Lewis Doe. And on the first slide, we have a logo of the Carroll Center, the Carroll Center logo. And the reason I am able to know that is that there is alt text on this slide, and we'll go into more of that. What we will be discussing today: who accessibility affects and why it matters, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG for short, accessible preparation and delivery, and then tools and resources that you can use after this presentation. So the importance of accessible presentations. Why do accessible presentations matter? And who do they affect? Well, they matter because we want to be inclusive. The goal is to have everybody be able to access all this material, right? And be involved and be included. So first and foremost, accessibility is a part of inclusion. And it affects everyone. And of course, there's a scale of how it affects. So people using assistive technology, people who are older, people with different types of disabilities beyond visual impairments. So accessibility matters to everyone, and everyone benefits from it. So what is WCAG? It's a set of universally recognized standards to achieve accessibility conformance. There are 3 levels. Level A is the minimum, level AA is the middle level, and then level AAA. It is already used by many organizations. There are legislation based on WCAG, such as Section 508, which is all federal electronic communications and documents need to meet WCAG or WCAG level 2.0 AA. And Title II of the ADA states that all electronic materials from state and local governments need to meet WCAG 2.1 level AA in the next 2 to 3 years. WCAG principles. They are perceivable, so your content needs to be either seen by somebody who's navigating it visually, needs to be seen by somebody using assistive technology. So your content, the content of your slides, need to be perceivable by all of your users. Operable. So it's great that we can perceive the slides or see the slides, but if we can't operate them, if we can't move between slides, then we really can't consume the presentation. So of course, they need to be operable. Understandable. If you're not explaining your slides, if you don't have alt text, if your slides are super visual or super technical or super complex, and there's not attention paid to understanding, then your audience will not understand the content and the message you're trying to convey. And lastly, it's robust, which means that your content is supported by assistive technologies and can be updated. So for example, being converted to a PDF. WCAG allows a creator of content and users to focus on the function of the content rather than disability type, except for specific cases. Now, of course, there's a second slide here, WCAG for PowerPoints. I just went over why perceivability, operability, understandability, and robustness is important, but I thought it would be a good thing to make that, to punctuate that again. If your content, your digital content don't have these four areas, then you're not ensuring accessibility. So hints for delivery. So you want to distribute your presentation prior to the meeting in both PowerPoints and PDF formats. This allows folks to look at your content beforehand, get comfortable with it, be able to set it up so they can navigate it during the meeting. Or so they can just look at the slides beforehand and then just pay attention to you during your meeting, just because sometimes there's a lot of cognitive overload if you're running a piece of assistive technology and having to pay attention to the presenter at the same time. Explain all bullet points while presenting. Don't leave out information, be clear about what you're trying to convey. Keep your idea succinct, and please describe any pictures and charts. Just like I did with slide 1, telling you that there is a picture of the Carroll Center logo. Slide titles. Slide titles are important because if you add titles, it allows the viewer or the audience member to know the contents of your slide, so what the slide is about. When it's converted to PDF, it also allows for easier and efficient navigation. Text formatting considerations. Use font sizes of at least 18 point. Avoid script fonts and italics. That could present some visual difficulties for folks. And I will now pass it on to David, who will be taking us off on color contrast.
Thank you, Louis, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. So I am completely blind. Color contrast does not matter to me at all, but it matters to pretty much everybody else. People with normal vision as well as people with low vision. And the contrast between your foreground colors and fonts, your characters, and any background colors, images, patterns must be sufficiently contrasted so that people can easily read that. So that could mean, a rather dark text on a relatively light background, or vice versa. And again, this is important for anybody, but particularly for low vision users. So if the color contrast is not adequate for a sighted, fully sighted person, might be a little bit difficult or irritating to read, but for somebody with low vision, it's all but impossible. Next slide. PowerPoint has a number of built-in themes. You find those in the design tab of the ribbons. And then you can also download accessible templates. I've listed here amongst the themes some of the ones that are acceptable from a color contrast point of view, and others that are not acceptable. And they've got sort of odd, bizarre names that are totally non-descriptive of what they are, but those are the ones that you would see in sort of the palette of themes. Next slide. So alternative text for images is extremely important. Any image that you're including in a PowerPoint, and of course, PowerPoints are often very visual with a good number of images. Those could be pictures, those could be charts like bar charts and the like. They should all have alt text. That alt text should be succinct, ideally no more than one sentence that just describes for example, what that is a picture of or what it is a chart of. Complex images, particularly charts, might require some additional description. And that is something that perhaps one could put in the speaker's notes as one option. I don't think you don't want all of that all text right there on the screen, but you might have it as bullet points so you can talk through those various, the main points that you want to make. I should also mention, I don't think it's in here, but any images that are purely decorative don't need or should not have alt text. Only those that you judge are meant to convey meaning. Next up is tables. And the most important thing there is to keep them simple. Avoid things like merged cells. Now, in a PowerPoint, you're also probably constrained to keeping them simple because they need to be large enough, the characters, so people like in the back of a room can see them. So you're probably not going to have more than 4 or 5 columns and 4 or 5 rows in such tables. Just a moment. In addition, this is very important. In the table layout or the table design tools, you want to check the check boxes for reading column headers and row headers. That makes it much easier for a screen reader user to be able to navigate around in a table and understand the cell data, what that corresponds to in terms of the column headers and row headers. We're going to be doing a short video afterwards, and one of those will talk about a table that doesn't have column headers and row headers automatically described, and another one that does. And the reading experience is much better for a screen reader user if you've set that correctly. You might also have alt text succinct to summarize the main point or two of the table, and perhaps also some more details in your speaker notes. But any table that you present verbally, you're going to want to present all of the main points in there, and that might also include creating some bullet points. Reading order. Sometimes you create slides and the different placeholders, they don't read in order. Maybe the title placeholder, the title reads, and then what was on the left side reads after what was on the right side, as an example. And that can make it hard for a screen reader user to understand. That usually doesn't happen. In fact, for the video that we made, I actually tried to replicate bad reading order, and I sort of couldn't do it. So it's a little bit rare, but it does happen from time to time. You can also use the accessibility checker that comes built in with Microsoft Office products, including PowerPoint. And if there are reading order problems, it should highlight those. Slide transitions and animations. Transitions are the visual and also can be auditory effects that occur when you transition from one slide to the next one. These should not be too jarring in any way. That could create some overload for people, and it can also make it sort of hard for people to concentrate. Animations are things where individual bullet points fly in. Then the speaker talks about that particular bullet point. Another one flies in, talks about that one also. That can be a good technique to get viewers to concentrate one bullet at a time. However, the fly in there should not be too abrupt because it can also create some some bad effects for people with some disabilities. I'll also note that unfortunately, as a screen reader user, animations are not accessible to me. I can create them, but the presentation doesn't actually read the way it is supposed to read. One should create meaningful hyperlinks, that is, links that have labels, not just HTTP, so on and so forth. That allows people to get a better understanding of what the link is about, and it aids in navigation, both in the PowerPoint as well as in, let's say, any PDFs that you convert. And I also mentioned that it might also be good to include the URL in speaker notes. The accessibility checker can be a very useful tool. Again, as I said before, Microsoft Office has accessibility checkers for all of the Office programs, PowerPoint included. This is found in the Review tab of the ribbons. And it categorizes error problems in different levels of severity, and it also suggests solutions. It will also bring you to the point in the document where those problems are occurring, or the presentation, and suggest how you can fix them. So finally, we have some tools and resources. I mean, there's an abundance of tools like YouTube videos and the like that can take you step by step through how to create accessible PowerPoints, but we have some additional ones here. Lewis, of course, has mentioned the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These are very good for pointing out what problems are, categorizing them, as well as also suggesting solutions. There are various color contrast analyzers that are out there on the market, both free and paid. TPGI is one of the companies that has a color contraster, and so those are good for pointing out those types of problems. Shameless plug for the book that I have written, The Windows Screen Reader Primer, All the Basics and More. That is a comprehensive look at how with screen reader programs, to create Microsoft Office documents, to browse the web, to do a number of other things. But there's also sections in there on PowerPoints, PDFs, and then some discussion also of accessibility and the use of the accessibility checkers. And then we also have at the Carroll Center, as Brian mentioned earlier, the screen reader user testing training program. I always get that wrong, SRUT as we know it. Lewis, perhaps in conclusion, you can say a few words about SRUT.
Yeah, the Screen Reader User Tester Training Program, we offer it twice a year, once in the fall and in the spring. Our fall one is coming up and starting in October. So if you're interested, please do get in touch and sign up and fill out our application process. We accept folks who are blind or visually impaired who are looking to get into the accessibility field and enhance their screen reader knowledge. And we also accept folks who are typically sighted who want some more immersion and exposure to screen reader use and other members of the community.
So that concludes our presentation. Sarah, do we want to take questions now? If there are any.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions? You can put it in the chat or in the Q&A.
One question we get a lot is are there any logistical considerations presenters should be aware of when presenting? David, do you want to talk a little bit about that, and then I'll take a swing at it.
Well, I think a couple of things are, well, for anybody making a presentation, when you always check out your hardware and your software uh, well ahead of time. Also check, for example, if you're going to do screen share, that is working both for the visuals as well as if you're going to present any audio. I've also noticed that in doing a PowerPoint, again, this is not all about accessibility, but just general awareness, so you don't freak out. If you're doing this in a physical location, very important you get there ahead of time. There too, you check out your hardware, your software, that the microphones are all working. You don't want to find out that there's a major glitch or disaster 5 minutes before it's time to actually present, because if you're at all like me, you'll have a hard time sort of regaining your composure. Beyond that, I'd say some of the things that Lewis mentioned earlier are quite important in terms of it's a good idea to, if you can, get the PowerPoint presentation to attendees, participants ahead of time. That's good. And I also find that in general, if you're going to be sharing with blind folks, more blind folks sort of tend to know how to read a PDF as compared to a PowerPoint presentation. So I try to get into the habit myself of sending people in advance both the actual PowerPoint presentation as well as that same file converted into a PDF. And that's extremely simple and easy to do. So those are a few points that I would raise, Lewis.
Yep, and I'll also add with the PDF, when the PowerPoint is converted to PDF, all the accessible markings you added to your PowerPoint will work. So for example, moving, using headings to move from one slide to another. I don't know if you've noticed during our delivery, but we did our best to say the slide titles, or at least give a pause and a transition, so folks can understand, hey, we're on this next slide, and try to adhere to the content of the slide as much as possible. That just helps when people are following along and they're not wondering, hey, what slide are you on? We have an 18 slide presentation, so let's say you fell behind on slide 7 and we're now on slide 12. Just little verbal clues can help you out. If you have, and I think you've also noticed that our slide titles each have unique slide titles. I know sometimes that's a little difficult to do. So for example, if you're doing, like a history presentation or another topic where it needs multiple slides to cover it, please don't use the same slide title over and over. Try to add something to it, even something like slide, part 1, part 2 will really help with those transitions. So when we're saying slide titles need to be unique, it doesn't just mean each slide needs a title. Each slide needs to actually have a unique title and something that differentiates one slide from another. I think I would also say, if you're referencing stuff, be careful with the words that you use. So you want to not use things like that slide that I showed, or this slide said. Maybe say, the hyperlink slide has the details you want, or on slide 19 or slide 18, those are where the resources are located. Things like that. So just be mindful and be as clear with your words while you're presenting as much as possible. And I think that will ensure that you have a successful PowerPoint presentation. Shall we head into demo video time, Sarah?
Yep, I'm gonna share the video right now.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to show you a few of the accessibility problems that we spoke about earlier and how a screen reader user experiences those. The first will be a table without column and row headers automatically read. The data is some fake data about WCAG violations by type of website. I'll go to that slide right now.
Slide 2, table without column and row header reading. Table without column and row header reading. Table with 4 columns and 5 rows. Category, Year 1, Year 2, Total, Retail, 11, 6, 17, Banking.
I'll hit Control to interrupt that speech. As you heard, it started reading row by row. That is not how I want to read it under any circumstances. The correct way is to go to the table using my screen reader keystroke T to jump to the table, top left corner of the table.
Wrapping to top. Table with 4 columns and 5 rows. Content placeholder 10, column 1, row 1, category.
And I can move within the table by using a combination of Control, Alt, and the 4 arrow keys to move up and down columns and across rows. I'll do Control, Alt, down arrow to go down 1 row.
Retail, row 2 of 5.
Now, if I move across, we'll see that the column headers are not read to me.
11, column 2 of 4.
I'll move across again.
6, column 3 of 4.
Now, unless I move manually up above, it's hard for me to know what that number 6 refers to. If I move down,
9, row 3 of 5.
I'm even more lost. Move across.
15, column 4 of 4.
Even more lost. I'll go to the next slide where column and row headers are read automatically, and we'll see that that is a better experience for me.
Slide 3, table with column and row header reading. Table with column and row header reading. Table with 4 columns and 5.
I interrupted speech. I'll hit T.
Table with 4 columns and 5 rows. Content placeholder 10, column 1, row 1, category.
I'll move down a row.
Retail, row 2 of 5.
Now when I move across, we will hear the column headers, remembering that I'm in the retail row.
Year 1, 11, column 2 of 4.
Move across again.
Year 2, 6, column 3 of 4.
If I remember that I am in the year 2 column and I move down,
Banking, 9, row 3 of 5.
I see that is the figure for banking. Move down again.
Education, 4, row 4 of 5.
Year 2 figure for education. Move across to the right.
Total, 10, column 4 of 4.
Total figure for education. So that makes the reading experience much easier. And again, how was that done? In the table design tools, in the ribbons, you check the checkbox for column headers and row headers. I'll move to the next slide where we have an alt text problem for an image.
Slide 4, image without alt text. Image without alt text. List of 2 items. Bullet AI generated alt text provided with PowerPoint 365, but usually very general. Bullet no alt text with earlier versions, or just says image. List end. Content placeholder 5 graphic.
And we hear there's only a graphic on the right. That is all we hear. We don't have any description of it. As we see in the slide, or as I mentioned, with Office 365, there will be some AI generated text. It's usually very general or generic, and you need to edit it. But with some of the earlier versions, you just hear graphic. I will move to the next slide where we have alt text, and we'll let it read all the way through.
Slide 5, image with alt text. Image with alt text. List of 2 items. Bullet alt text should be concise and objective. Bullet no alt text for decorative images. List end. Group of 3 emperor penguins standing on a beach in Antarctica on a sunny day. Graphic.
And there I hear the alt text for that, and I now know what it is a picture of. One last problem. I'll go to the next slide.
Slide 6. Poor color contrast. Poor color contrast. List of 2 items. Bullet unable to easily distinguish foreground and background colors. Bullet need to change one or both. List end.
Now, for me as a screen reader user, color contrast really doesn't matter at all. But for those of you who can see this, it is a fairly light green foreground font on just a slightly lighter green also. So this is probably not a very pleasant reading experience for you, but also for low vision users, this is probably impossible for them to read. So here, of course, you would change either the font color or the background color or both. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the accessibility checker that comes with PowerPoint.
Slide 7. Using the accessibility checker. Using the accessibility checker. List of 3 items. Bullet correctly identifies the 3 problems in this presentation. Bullet allows us to move to the problem slides. Bullet tells us more about the problems and how to fix them. List end.
So that's a little bit about what the accessibility checker does. I'm going to escape out of the slideshow.
Escape. Demo of some PowerPoint accessibility problems. PPTX Power.
And to get in the accessibility checker, which is in the review tab, I'm going to quickly get there using the ribbon shortcut, which is Alt followed by R and then A.
Upper ribbon. Expand R, A. Group. Check accessibility. 1 of 5. Keep it inclusive. Let us make sure that your file follows accessibility best practices. We'll help you fix issues quickly with easy-to-follow directions or recommendations. To move through items, press up or down arrow. Alt followed by R, A.
And I'll hit enter to run it.
And leaving menus. Ribbon expanded. Keep going. Button. Fix the remaining issues in the document to make it accessible to everyone. To activate, press spacebar.
And I'll tab here.
Show only issues on current slide button not checked. To activate, press spacebar.
So if I check this checkbox, that would examine just the slide I'm on. Instead, I'll tab and we'll hopefully find all 3 of the problems.
Hard to read text contrast 1 button. 1 of 1. To activate, press spacebar.
There's the color contrast issue. Tab again.
Missing all text 1 button. 1 of 2. To activate, press spacebar.
The alt text issue. Tab one more.
Missing table header 1 button. 1 of 2. To activate, press spacebar.
And here's the table header problem. I'll open this up. We'll see what happens.
Insert header row button. To activate, press spacebar.
So it tells me here's what the problem is. I'll tab once.
Use first row as header button. To activate, press spacebar.
And I'll spacebar on that.
Space. Table without column and row header reading slide. 2 of 7. Table. 4 columns and 5 rows. Keep going. Button. Fix the remaining issue.
And by the way, it told me which slide that was, the second. And it asked me whether I want to keep going. And I'll go to the alt text.
Show only issues on hard to read text missing all text 1 button. 1 of 2. To add space. Back button. To activate, press spacebar. Image without all text slide. 4 of 7. Object placeholder.
Tells me I'm on the 4th slide. I'll tab.
Generate description button. To activate, press spacebar.
We could generate an AI description, again, only with 365, which is what I'm using. I'll tab.
Mark as decorative button. To activate, press spacebar.
I could mark it as decorative.
Learning tip. To activate, press enter.
I could learn a little bit more here.
Back button. To activate, press spacebar. Enter image description edit. How would you describe this object and its context to someone who is blind or low vision? Type in text.
Or I could put in my own text manually. We'll do the AI generated text.
Generate description button. To activate, press spacebar. Enter. Generating button. To activate, press spacebar. Image without all text slide. 4 of 7. Object placeholder. A group of penguins standing on a beach. AI generated content may be incorrect.
And it tells us it might be incorrect. I'm going to tab to the save button.
Mark as decorative. Learning tip. Back button. Enter image approve button. To activate, press spacebar.
Or I guess it's an approve button.
Enter. Keep going button. Fix the remaining issues in the document to make it accessible.
I'll now restart from the beginning and we'll just go to the slides that we fixed, supposedly.
F5. Slide 2. Table without column and row header reading. Table without.
I'll navigate to the table.
Table with 4 columns and 5 rows. Content.
I'll move down.
Retail. Row 2 of 5.
I'll move right.
Year 1, 11. Column 2 of 4.
We are now hearing the column headers. Now, it did not identify row headers as a problem. So if I move down,
6, row 3 of 5.
we don't hear the sector. So I would need to know that I've got to fix that on my own. And I'll go to the one with the AI generated text.
Slide 3. Slide 4, image without alt text. Image without alt text. List of 2 items. Bullet AI generated alt text provided with PowerPoint 365, but usually very general. Bullet no alt text with earlier versions, or just says image. List end. A group of penguins standing on a beach graphic.
And there is the AI generated text. So there are a few of the accessibility problems and a little demo of how the accessibility checker identified those problems and suggested some ways to fix them.
Looks like we have one question, right, Sarah?
Yes, we had a question about David. In the video, we saw Braille at the top of your screen. They want to know if, like, how does that generate in the video?
That was unintentional. I'm not entirely sure. Sometimes I create videos, I can't see them, so I don't know really what that is. And I'm
It's
not
probably the
entirely sure
JAWS
how to.
viewer, the JAWS
Oh, it
Braille viewer.
could be. Well, I don't know how I got the JAWS Braille viewer on, but so that was unintentional. Lewis, you can tell me afterwards how to get rid of it.
I don't even know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I saw another question. David, in your book, the Windows Screen Reader Primer, is that a resource for screen reader users only, or can other people benefit by checking out your book?
I think other people might be able to benefit from it, not only for knowing how screen reader users do things, but learning a little bit more about accessibility. But so, I talk about how to do all the basics in Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoints, etc. The difference between that and maybe a standard user manual is I'm talking about only doing it with keystrokes, no mouse allowed with this. Often, of course, sighted people primarily use the mouse. Often, though, I've showed some sighted people some of the keystrokes for doing various things and say, oh my, that's much quicker than what I do with the mouse. So you might pick up some keystrokes in there for doing the basic things that you do that you find are quicker than what you typically do with the mouse. Again, that is a free resource available at from the Carroll Center. I think there's a link in the PowerPoint, but you could just go to carroll.org and then the link for shop. That's where the Carroll store is, and you can download it. But again, it is free.
Yep, keyboard power users will definitely benefit from it if you join our Screen Reader User Tester Training Program. That is our premier textbook, and my favorite thing to say is look it up. David wrote it down for you. So parents, if you have children who are screen reader users, this will definitely help you. It's a fantastic resource all around. I can say, not that I am saying this just because David's here and he's my colleague, but I do use this resource all the time, and I consistently hear folks not just in America but internationally use it as a reference. So it's a wonderful resource that is universally accessible and very inclusive.
I also use it a lot too because I can't remember half the things that I wrote.
So this resource is more for you then.
Oh yeah.
Heather wrote in the chat here, David, do we have any advice about videos in PowerPoints?
One, of course, sort of keep them short videos that videos that are just videos without any sort of dialogue coming along is not very accessible. Often videos are okay if the accompanying audio is really sort of describing what's going on, so people can follow that. So that is one idea. I think for accompanying text that goes with it, or captioning, closed captioning, and so on. I'm not really sure. Well, ideally, also, if you get like a video from YouTube and it has closed captioning or something like that on it, that can be useful also. But I found that there are useful videos, even if they're not sort of officially described in any way with alt text, so long as the narrator is giving you a good idea of what's going on. And I would think if you have any doubts yourself, well, just close your eyes and listen and see if just listening, you can follow what's going on. And if you can't, it might not be a very good video to use.
I want to add a point here, and some of you, when you hear the words audio that allows folks to know what's going on, you may be thinking audio description, and that's, let's say you did find a video that has audio description, or you spend the time creating a video and you added an audio description track. That's wonderful and great, but you may not have that option, and audio description can be difficult. But so the audio itself, the video itself needs to be descriptive. So the narrator will say things like, "We are here at this location doing this thing." And yes, the blind screen reader user may miss out on certain things, like, I don't know, what people are wearing or what have you, like just certain details. But as long as the overall message being conveyed is being conveyed, that's great. And you as the presenter may even want to pause after the video and say, "Hey, does anyone have any questions?" So you can fill in those gaps. So different just different methodologies there. As long as you communicate, you ask your audience members any questions after you show a video, and you give them time and space for that, then I think you should be fine.
And maybe you yourself, give some supplemental verbal information about what has been going on in that video.
Mm-hmm.
There was a comment about how a lot of this is beneficial to people with learning disabilities as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There too, I'd say something like, another thing, and I think this is just for good presentations in general, keep your bullet points, your text short and succinct. One thing I always try to do, I do not write complete sentences as my bullet points, my talking points. I, like many of you perhaps, have endured a lot of badly delivered PowerPoint presentations. And one sign of a bad PowerPoint is that the presenter reads off of the screen. And if they've written complete sentences, they will be tempted to read the whole thing. The idea of the talking points is they should be brief, succinct, and you as the presenter, you are the expert on that. So you should be able to, expound on those talking points. And that's your best way of showing that you understand your material. It also makes it more legible, intelligible for people with learning disabilities, but I think for for all attendees.
Accessibility is a tide that will lift all boats, and we are the boats in accessibility, I suppose, in this badly phrased analogy.
We should put that quote in our next PowerPoint. That's a great one. Thank you, Louis. Yes. Yeah.
I will also say, sometimes you may think you're clearer in your mind than you actually are. So maybe practice your slides out loud, read things out loud. If you say words like this and that a lot, and you say vague words like that, you can train yourself out of that habit. That's it for me.
I had a couple things. You just reminded me when you just said that. I don't know much about it and I haven't used it too much, but I know there's a new feature on Teams that you can kind of practice a presentation, and it'll coach you on things like that if you're saying like a million times, or if you should speak slower. So that's a new feature that I just learned about. But my question, and I know that the title and the theme of this presentation is PowerPoint, but I've noticed like a lot of people use Google Slides for presentations, or I've been seeing Canva templates a lot more frequently. Are all the suggestions the same for other platforms, or do you have any insight on if recommendations for different presentation platforms?
I'll take a crack at least part of that. I think, in short, yes, the recommendations are all the same. Adequate color contrast, alt text for images, tables that are simple, fonts that are big enough. Those won't change. Google Slides, I know how to use them. I don't use it for one very simple reason. I haven't checked this out, admittedly, in a year or two, but actually delivering the presentation in front of a group of people, in the slide, their equivalent of the slideshow or presentation mode or view is not accessible for me as a screen reader user. It will not read right. So, I counsel other screen reader users, if you're going to learn one of these two, either PowerPoint or slides, learn PowerPoint. Canva I have not used, but again, I don't think that the things that we've talked about here change at all. I mean, there's not, as far as I know, Google Slides. Well, there's no. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Google Workspace doesn't have an equivalent of an accessibility checker like Office does.
There are third-party ones.
Mhm.
Not sure how well they work, but there are third-party ones that you could find. Not sure about Canva on that end either. So Microsoft has done a lot of work with their accessibility checker. So I guess we would recommend that if you can, use PowerPoint. But with that said, these platforms, Google Workspace, Google Slides, Canva, I know for a fact, I know at least Google Slides, you can download your presentation as a PowerPoint. So, considering distributing them that way would be great. As a presenter, as long as you're clear in whatever you're using, it doesn't matter. But in terms of distribution, you may want to offer a PowerPoint copy. And once you've downloaded that PowerPoint copy, you may want to run it through the accessibility checker, just because Google Slides and Canva don't have that. Not sure if that answered your question or not, Sarah.
Yeah, no, thank you. And in my experience with Canva, just a little bit, I've found that it just sometimes can be overcomplicated. Like it can be like a really fancy, pretty looking font or different, pictures in the background. But from what I've heard and my experience, simpler is the better. So, but yeah.
Not to go beyond the scope of this, but I think Sarah's bringing up an important point here. Canva, it's overcomplicated, it's visual, right? And now they're trying to backtrack and add in some accessibility. And I think it's kind of obvious why that's a bad thing, right? You're trying to bolt something on it later on as an afterthought. So there's going to be some growing pains there. So that's all to say, if you are working somewhere and you're developing any product, whether it's a digital product or a physical product, consider accessibility way early on rather than 3 years later. And that kind of previews us for several presentations in
I
the
was
future,
gonna
does it not?
say, what a good segue to close, unless there was anything else. Any other last minute questions? Okay. Thank you all for attending this informative presentation. You will receive a survey and would greatly appreciate your time to complete that. Your feedback will inform our future presentations, including discussions about topics to present. You will also receive a link to view the recording of this webinar, as well as the previous recorded webinars. And as Lewis was just saying, please join us for our next webinar. So we're not going to meet in July, but our next webinar is August 14th. And we're going to be talking about accessibility for testers. So accessibility testing, and then after that, we're going to be talking about accessibility for designers. So we would love for you to come to our next sessions and talk about those topics.
Yep. Brian Switzer and I will be presenting those topics, so you'll be able to hear more of Brian's dulcet tones in the next two presentations.
Hope you guys enjoy my voice. But just cut with me for 2 months in August and September. We look forward to seeing you guys all then. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great day.